do you think is the #1 predictor of career success for women? My personal philosophy is that careers are made or broken through 7 critical relationships. As you'll see later, not all of these relationships are with people. So what are these 7 critical relationships? They combine to form a leadership program. I'm going to talk now about each one of the relationships and what each session would cover. Begin in the very first session with an overview of the status of women in the workplace today. And then we will explore the benefits of why should you be self-aware? Why is that important in the workplace? We'll also identify women's natural strengths. It's good to uncover not only the natural strengths, but we're going to uncover your individual strengths. So together, those 2 things are pretty powerful. We also need to be aware of, I hate the word weaknesses. I like to use the word areas for development. In this session, I'll also introduce you to the formal assessments that I use in my practice. I have 4 that are my favorite and are probably the most widely used in corporate America. And I will direct you to how you can take those if you so wish. And then at the end, when you have your one-on-one, we will take everything that you've learned about yourself and help you to try to brand yourself. So that's the first session. The second session is your relationship with your values. I think this one, they're all important, but I think I devoted a whole session to this because a lot of studies now have found that women, what they want today, they want to be authentic. And you cannot be authentic unless you know what your values are. So what we do is, first of all, we identify, well, what are values? Most people don't take the time to really figure out and prioritize their values and do that over time because they change. They're constantly changing. And whether we know it or not, we make our decisions based on our values. So we'll look at where they come from and why they're important. We'll also, I like to explore, we'll just do this briefly, the evolution of feminine values through the 3 waves of American feminism. What were the values that women fought for? And then we'll identify your personal values and, very importantly, explore, do they match your organization's? Because if you don't at least have a couple of values that match your organization's, you're not going to be very satisfied at work. And then this is one of my favorite subjects. I've done whole workshops on these. We'll talk briefly about the values of the 4 generations at work. This is the very first time that there are 4 generations in the workplace. And they all have very different values, and it's causing a lot of dissension. And then we'll make an action plan for living your values more fully. The next session, your relationship with your organization. I've done a lot of OD work. OD means organization development. And I'm going to introduce you to a model to help you easily identify all the facets of an organization. Because what a lot of people do, they go into a job with blinders on. I've got to do a good job, and they really don't pay attention to what's going on in the rest of the organization. So I'm going to show you this model that'll help you easily identify what you could be looking at. And we're going to explore the concept of being politically savvy. Now, I know a lot of women don't like to have anything to do with politics, right? But whether you know it or not, at work, you are on a chessboard, and you need to learn how to be a player. Do you want to be a pawn, or do you want to be a queen? So we will emphasize how do you uncover those strategic relationships at work that will help you reach your career goals, whether that's getting ahead or getting a prime project, and we'll talk about how do you influence those people. The next, your relationship with your manager. Most people do not leave their jobs because of the work or the place. They leave it because they don't get along or like their manager. And I know that was true for me several times in my career. So what we'll do first is we'll assess your present relationship with your manager, because what you need to do is become more aware of your manager's needs and priorities, because believe it or not, your job as an employee is to help your boss realize their goals. So it behooves you to create a successful partnership with your boss. So, and we'll also include here, what are the differences and challenges in working with male bosses? Are they different than working with female managers? I can't tell you how many people I'll poll and I'll say, so what do you think about working for a female boss? Actually, the guys like working for a female boss better than the women do. But we'll talk a little bit more. So what you're going to learn in this class is how do I style flex with my manager in order to get along? Because we all have different styles. Some of that you learn through some of the assessments that we'll talk about. The next, your relationship with your peers. So here we're going to explore the male-female, the male-female peer relationship, and the female-female peer relationship. And a very important concept here. Are women cooperative or are they competitive? What do you think? Think competitive? They're probably both, and that's what causes a lot of inner conflict with women, because they are both. We need to learn how to strike a balance between being cooperative and competitive. And the reason we need to do that is because, as I said before, most of us at work are working on teams, so you need to get along with your peers. And somebody else once said that the best way to really get promoted are the people who get along with their peers. And you have to get along with your boss because your boss does hold the key to your promotion, but they look at who gets along with your peers. Your relationship with your staff, or if you don't manage people, it works with your relationship with your clients. So we'll talk about the roles and responsibilities of managers and what makes a good manager. We'll go over the female manager stereotypes and what you can do to counteract these if you are a manager. And what I want to do is introduce you. There are lots of different leadership styles. I happen to like the coaching style. I think that's very popular now. So I will introduce you to a really easy 4-step coaching model that if you are a manager, you can use. And the last is your relationship with your work-life balance. So first we'll talk about the myths of the work-life balance, because not everything needs to be balanced exactly. I call it your pie, your life pie. You need to recognize, and we'll talk about that in the class, where are you making trade-offs for this particular point in your life? Because it might be okay if your pie is all lopsided. That might be okay with you. And it might change in 1 year, 2 years. So you want to be aware of what your priorities are and what trade-offs you're making. So we will emphasize finding the right balance for you. And we'll look at ways that you can manage the stress of juggling everything. A lot of women are married, have kids, and that's not so easy to have a full-time job and plus do other things. And we're going to, in this session, we talk about, how do we ask for and negotiate for what we want. A lot of times that's difficult for people, but if we get more of what we want, we will have less stress. So, as I said before, the course includes an individual coaching session, which we'll do separately at the end, and we'll focus on helping you develop your brand. You can bring in your resume. I like to do at the top, I like to do a profile, which a lot of people will call that an elevator speech, which tells in a capsule exactly, concisely what you've done. Okay, so just want to recap that This is a very comprehensive course and will help you figure out why you're stuck if you are stuck, and how you can bridge the gap from where you are now